So we're going to start taking a look at the calculator part. So we need to draw some of these triangles. So we have A, B, and C. So A is 47.25, B is 58.55, and little c is 23. So let's see, well, we could figure out this angle here. So if we do 180 minus 58.55 minus 47.25. And make sure you're pausing the video to do this. I'm just going to work through from the answer key that I had here. We ended up with 74.2. So here's 74.2 degrees. And we're asked to find little a. Well, now we can set up law of sines because we have an angle and the side opposite. So the sine of 74.2 over 23 equals the sine of 47.25 over little a. We can cross multiply here, so we end up with 23 times the sine of 47.25 equals a times the sine of 74.2. And then to solve for a, we divide each side by the sine of 74.2. And you should end up with a equaling 17.55. So the next one, we have another triangle. We have A, B, and C. So A is 37.2, B is 17.9, and little a is 22.3. And we need to find the area. Well, if you guys remember, area equals half times b times c times the cosine of a. So it's two sides and the included angle. So what we have to find here is another side. And well, let's see, if we find B, we wouldn't have an included angle, but we could do that 180 business. So 180 minus 37.2 minus 17.9, we end up with 124.9. Definitely not drawn to scale. And now we could do law of sines. So maybe we want to find little c. So we could set up the sine of 37.2 over 22.3 equals the sine of 124.9 over little c. Cross multiply. 22.3 times the sine of 124.9 equals c sine of 37.2. Divide by the sine of 37.2. And we end up with c being 30.25. And again, I already did these calculations, so make sure you pause it and check on your calculator. So now you can see we have two sides and the included angle. So back to our formula for area, 1/2 times 22.3 times 30.25. And excuse me, I mixed up. This isn't the cosine. This is the sine. And this formula will be on your test as well. So the sine of 17.9, type that in, and we should end up with 103.67 units squared. So when we go down to number 3 here, let's see, we have another triangle, A, B, and C. So A is 67 degrees, little b is 10, C is 5, and we need to find little a. Well, we can't use law of sines because we don't have an angle and the side opposite, so law of cosines. So a squared equaled 5 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 5 times 10 times the cosine of 67. If you type this all in and press enter at the end, you end up with 85.93, and you take the square root of that, and we end up with 9.27. All right, another one. We have A, B, and C. So we have A is 4, B is 11, C is 8. We're asked to find this angle here. So again, law of cosine. So if we want to find B, we'll start with the side opposite. So 11 squared, 8 squared plus 4 squared minus 2 times 8 times 4 times the cosine of B. And this is when we have to break it down here. So 11 squared is 121. We can put 8 squared plus 4 squared together is 80 minus 2 times 8 times 4 is 64 times the cosine of B. And then we solve for it. And we can't combine these two. We have to isolate 64 and the cosine of B. So if we subtract 80, let's see, we end up with 41 equals negative 64 times the cosine of B. Divide by negative 64. So we end up with 41 over negative 64 equals the cosine of B. And to find an angle, we take the inverse of that. And we end up with 129.84 degrees. And then this last one here, number 5. Once again, we have a triangle. So A is 21, B is 15, C is 28. And we have to find the area. So that area formula, 1/2 any two sides and the included angle times the sine. Keep writing cosine. So we know for this we have to find the biggest angle first. So that would be C. So we can start 28 squared equals 21 squared plus 15 squared. 2 times 21 times 15 times the cosine of C. And this, like the last one, we have to break it down. So this is 784 equals, if we add those two, we get 666 minus those together, we end up with 630 times the cosine of C. We can subtract this here, so subtract 666, and we end up with 118 equals negative 630 times the cosine of C. Divide by negative 630, and I'll end up, let's see, a decimal this time. What did we end up with? Negative 0.187. And then we do the inverse. So here next, negative 0.187, and we end up with 100.8 degrees. So even though it doesn't match up with these letters, we have two sides and the included angle. So we can do 1/2 21 times 15 times the sine of 100.8, and we end up with 154.7, and we can just add on units squared.